There's a quiet moment that happens to almost everyone who buys Bitcoin. You open your app, you check your balance, you see 0.01 worth of Bitcoin sitting there, and something in you whispers, "That's it. That's all I've got." Because you've seen the screenshots, the laser eyes, the Twitter bios flexing 1, 10, or even 100 Bitcoin. You start to feel behind, late, small, like you've missed the boat. But here's what they don't tell you. If you hold 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, you're already ahead of 99% of the planet. Now, not in terms of clout, not in terms of status, but in terms of foresight, in terms of leverage, in terms of access to the most important monetary revolution of our lifetime. Now, this isn't about stacking sats just to feel rich. It's about understanding what it means to hold even the smallest slice of something that can't be printed, duplicated, or seized. Because 0.01 worth of Bitcoin isn't a joke, it's a signal. And if you understand the math behind it, you'll stop seeing it as small and start seeing it as sovereign. See, we've been conditioned to think in terms of more followers, more income, more assets, more square footage, more Bitcoin. But most people don't realize how little of Bitcoin actually exists. 21 million, that's it, and no more. Now, roughly 19 million have already been mined. And when you start doing the math, on a planet of 8 billion people, things get serious pretty fast. Because even if every human on Earth tried to own 1 Bitcoin, there wouldn't be enough. Not even close. In fact, for every person to get 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, there would need to be only 2.1 billion people alive. But we've already surpassed 8 billion people. So that means if you hold 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, just 1% of a full coin, you are actually mathematically ahead of nearly everyone else. And if adoption continues, if more governments, institutions, and funds enter the network, well, that slice becomes the new equivalent of owning beachfront property in Manhattan in 1905. Now, it's not the amount that matters, it's the access. Because here's the real game. Bitcoin is a fixed supply asset on a planet where everything else inflates. Every stock can issue new shares, every fiat currency can be printed, and every real estate market can build new homes, new neighborhoods, and new inventory. But Bitcoin, well, there will only ever be 21 million coins, and millions of those are already lost forever. So the circulating supply is even smaller. But now imagine what happens when governments begin buying in. More sovereign wealth funds allocate to it, and pensions, endowments, and hedge funds start calling it an alternative reserve. Now, do you think they're buying just to flip? Well, no. They're buying because they understand one thing. They're late, and they need exposure before it becomes unbuyable. And you, well, you're already positioned. You got in before the stampede, and even if it's just 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, you got access when it was still possible. Now, that's not just financial positioning, that's legacy leverage. See, most people underestimate the power of small bets with asymmetric upside. They think 0.01 worth of Bitcoin isn't worth it because it won't make them rich. But they're thinking like gamblers, not like owners. So let's go ahead and rewind. If you bought a few $1,000s worth of Amazon stock in 2002, people laughed. You only had a few shares. Big deal, they said. You'll never retire on that. But fast forward 20 years and those few shares could be worth tens of hundreds of thousands. Now, the same thing happened with Apple, with Google, with Tesla. But here's the difference with Bitcoin. Those companies could issue new stock. Bitcoin cannot be duplicated. So when you hold even 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, you're not betting on the price, you're locking in percentage ownership and of the scariest monetary network on Earth. And that percentage, well, becomes priceless once the world catches on. There's always that guy, quiet, early, unassuming. And back in 2013, he bought a few $100s of Bitcoin. He didn't understand it. He didn't day trade. He didn't even talk about it much. He just saw something others didn't, and he held. Now, years later, his friends are still trying to time the market, still asking, is now a good time to get in, and still waiting for the perfect dip. Meanwhile, that guy, well, he's free. Not because he made a windfall, but because he bought time. He bought freedom from the game everyone else is still trapped in. And he did it by doing what almost nobody had the patience to do. And that is, buy a small amount and hold it like it mattered. Because he did. So when you hold 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, you're not just buying an asset. You're buying peace of mind in a system that doesn't want you to sleep well. You're buying resilience in a financial world addicted to debt, dilution, and dopamine. And you're buying an identity shift from someone who reacts to someone who prepares. Now, Bitcoin rewires how you view money, time, risk, and security. It takes you out of the algorithm of inflation, market noise, and mainstream thinking, and it drops you into a mindset of clarity, patience, and long-term control. You don't check the price every hour. You don't panic during 30% dips, because you know, deep down, what you're holding is not fragile, it's not synthetic, it's not a bet on someone else's solvency. It's time encoded in math. And when the world finally sees that, you'll already be there. So compare your options. You could be saving in fiat, watching inflation silently erode your purchasing power, or you could put your money in the stock market, hoping index funds outpace the next recession. Or you could buy real estate, then cross your fingers that taxes, interest rates, or legislation don't blow up your margins. Or you could hold 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, which is actually 1 million Satoshis. And it's something you can store without permission, something you can carry across borders, and something no one can seize, dilute, or default on. Now, it's not about picking the best investment. It's about holding something real in a world of mirages. And if you can hold it long enough, you win. So let's say it clearly. You are not behind. The people who flex their full coins, their trades, their bags, many of them will sell too soon. They'll chase the next trend. They'll panic at the next dip. Now, they're not early, they're loud. But you, well, if you hold even 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, quietly, consistently, and with conviction, well, you're early. Because the real game hasn't even begun yet. Adoption is still in single digits globally, and most of the world still thinks Bitcoin is a scam, a speculation, or a phase. And by the time they realize that it's not, you'll already be on the other side, watching history play out and with your share of it in cold storage. So the next time you look at your wallet and see only 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, shift that lens. Don't see a small number. See ownership stake in the most important financial protocol of the 21st century. See a hedge against global instability, against centralized failure, and against fiat decay. See the beginning of a legacy your future self will thank you for. Because holding 0.01 worth of Bitcoin doesn't mean you're small. It means you're sovereign. And that makes you wealthier than most people will ever be. So you don't need to stack a full Bitcoin. You don't need to beat the market. You need to see clarity and act accordingly. Because the future won't reward those who have the most. It will reward those who understand the earliest. And you, well, you're already ahead. Now, if you want to go deeper down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, then check out my ebook down below, because it's the wake-up call they never wanted you to read. Now, I do also have to chuck this disclaimer in here as well, and I highly suggest just pausing the video and having a little read. Now, if you've made it this far, and if you're looking for something else to watch, then click right here and have a watch of this.